So today we'll be making chicken sink soup. And the two ingredients that are a must are, of course, chicken and some chicken broth. And by the way, this is a Market Basket rotisserie chicken that I just processed last night. Now, other ingredients, pepper and onion, they just are part of every recipe in this house. So pepper and onion, and then any combination of vegetables. I have, of course, some carrots and squash. Tomatoes go in everything. This is kind of going bad in the refrigerator, so I'll throw in those celery. Baby spinach is always nice, and I like mushrooms too. I didn't have any fresh ones, but I have these dried ones. Other things you can use are green beans, Brussels sprouts. So you don't need all of these things, and it comes out different every time. So this is the pepper, the onion, and the celery. I fry these up ahead of time, and I don't know why. Maybe you don't need to, but my mother always did this, and that's good enough reason for me. So after those vegetables fried for 10 or 15 minutes, I added a couple of boxes of chicken broth. I do have a third one that I'll probably use, but let's start off with two. These are the brands I tend to use, but you can use any kind you want. And now I'm turning the heat up high to get this simmering. And now I'm going to cut up my other vegetables too. Chicken goes in. Carrots go in. Now I did break up my dried mushrooms into smaller pieces just because they tend to absorb a lot of liquid. And you can use whole regular fresh mushrooms, of course, or you can say mushrooms are gross. I don't like mushrooms. In that case, don't use mushrooms. If you use baby spinach, don't be alarmed when you put it in because it seems like so much, but guess what? It shrivels up and shrinks down to nothing. Wow, look how pretty. So I'm going to cover that up and simmer it low for maybe half an hour or till the carrots get soft because they're the hardest things in there. And then I usually put my squash, or if I have zucchini, I put that in towards the end because I don't like it to get all mushy. And I also save the tomatoes to the end too because I'm not sure how much liquid I'll need. So about midway cooking here, I'm noticing it's looking a little thick, so I'm going to add some more chicken broth. I'll probably add maybe half a box. My problem is I need a bigger pan. Okay, so the carrots were fork tender, so I added the squash, and I did put in 2 cans of the tomatoes, which I meant to buy crushed, but I bought stewed, which is perfectly fine, except they were too big, so I had to kind of cut them up a little. And as you notice, I'm right up at the brim of the pan here. I can't add anything else, except I just remembered I should put in some spices. Let's see what I have in the cabinet. So I'll probably shake in 3 or 4 shakes of basil, celery salt, oregano, and I really want to put this in, but my neighbor Linda doesn't like it spicy, and we like to share the soup, so I'll leave that out and put the crushed red pepper in by the bowl. I never know how much spices to put in, so I just put 3 or 4 shakes of this, maybe 6 or 8. I put a little less of the celery salt because it came out fast. And by the way, speaking of salt, I like a lot of salt, but not everybody does. So I put a little bit of salt, but I don't make it as salty as I would like. And I save that and put it in the bowl of soup, along with that hot red pepper at the end. Now I want to talk to you about pasta and rice. You can add either of these to your soup towards the end, because if there was room. But I would say maybe a cup and a half, a cup of pasta, a rice, and then once you add that in, you almost don't have to cook it any longer. It'll absorb itself. But what I prefer is no rice, no pasta, instead a nice loaf of bread from Market Basket. That way I can sop up my broth with the bread. That's the way I like it. You can do it any way you want. The only other thing I'll say is if you're going to eat it all at once, then it's good to use pasta. But if you're going to store it, what happens is the pasta gets all, huge and mushy. And so if you're going to store it, I would just put the pasta in as you eat it. It's much simpler, in my opinion, just to have a nice piece of bread. So I cooked this about another half hour, just long enough to get the squash cooked, but not mushy. And yay, I'm about to enjoy a bowl of this with my bread, and I'm going to shake on my red pepper and my salt, and then probably distribute some to my neighbor. And of course, my husband will enjoy it too. So thanks for watching, and remember that you can cook this any way you want. It's different every time, but it's always good.